"We can't give up, my loves. This lighthouse is all we have left, even if it's falling apart," Clara cried, her voice choked by the salty wind that whipped her children's faces. The children trembled, huddled together, as the giant wave crashed against the base of the tower, swallowing the first steps and echoing a terrifying roar. The smell of mold and salt filled the damp air, and with each crash, the entire structure seemed to groan, threatening to collapse. But when Clara descended to the lowest level, flooded by the tide, and her fingers touched something cold and metallic beneath the dark water, she didn't know that this lighthouse, a symbol of her misery, held a secret that would change not only their lives, but the destiny of an entire family. Clara felt a shiver at the touch of the ice-cold metal. Heavy, smooth, it was firmly fixed to the flooded floor. Her eyes, accustomed to the gloom, tried to discern its shape under the murky water, but the darkness and the movement of the tide made it impossible. She withdrew her hand, her heart pounding, a mix of fear and curiosity. "What could this be?" she murmured, her voice almost inaudible over the roar of the waves. Upstairs, Sophia, the eldest, with honey-colored hair and frightened eyes, called out, "Mommy, it's so cold! Where are we going to sleep?" Lucas, the little one, clung to his sister's leg, his lips purple. Clara climbed the few steps, her body aching from exhaustion. She hugged her children tightly, trying to transmit a warmth she didn't feel. "Don't worry, my dears. Mommy will find a way. We always find a way, don't we?" She kissed each of their foreheads, feeling their cold skin. The lighthouse, with peeling walls and broken windows, was a labyrinth of shadows and icy draughts. The smell of sea salt and abandonment was suffocating. Inside, the tower was even more hostile. The spiral staircase, corroded by time and dampness, seemed an invitation to danger. On the first landing, a small circular room, perhaps once an office, was covered in marine debris and puddles of water. There wasn't even a dry corner to shelter from the wind howling through the cracks. Clara felt a lump in her throat. The cruel smile of Horacio, the landowner, when offering that place, burned in her mind. He wanted to see her break, but she wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Never. "Let's explore a little, shall we?" Clara forced a smile, trying to inject a sense of adventure into the desperate situation. "Who knows? Maybe we'll find a warm spot." Sophia, always observant, pointed to a crack in the wall from which a yellowed piece of paper peeked out. "Look, Mummy, what's that?" Curious, Clara approached, carefully pulling out the paper. It was an old hand-drawn map with strange symbols and lines indicating paths and specific points inside the lighthouse. Her eyes scanned the details, and one point in particular caught her attention. An X marked on the foundation, exactly where she had touched the metallic object. A spark of hope, fragile as a candle flame in the wind, ignited in Clara's chest. Could it be possible? Would that desolate place hide something more? She looked at her children, who watched her with the innocence and trust that only children possess. For them, she would move mountains, face raging seas. The lighthouse, once a symbol of her humiliation, began to transform into an enigma, a challenge she was ready to unravel. The night promised to be long and cold, but the discovery of the map had planted a seed of curiosity and determination. She needed to understand what that X meant, to find whatever was hidden there, for the promise of a better future for Sophia and Lucas. The unconditional love for her children was the force that propelled her, the anchor that held her firm against despair. Clara clutched the map to her chest, the paper damp and fragile. The promise of a better future, of a safe home for Sophia and Lucas, was a faint warmth amidst the biting cold that seeped through every crack in the lighthouse. But night was approaching fast, and the absolute priority now was to find a refuge, however small, for her exhausted children. She looked at Sophia with her honey-colored hair, rubbing her arms with tiny hands, her big, frightened eyes fixed on her mother. Lucas, the little one, was already yawning, his lips purple and his little eyes heavy with sleep and fatigue. There was no time to unravel mysteries now. Survival came before any discovery. "Let's go up a little higher, my loves. Maybe the wind won't be as strong up there and we'll find a drier spot," Clara said, her voice soft but firm. Trying to infuse courage she barely felt. The spiral staircase seemed endless, each step a battle against exhaustion and the dampness that seeped into their bones. The creaking of the old wood under her feet echoed in the oppressive silence of the lighthouse, a ghostly sound. Sophia, with her innate curiosity, tried to peer through the broken windows, watching the raging sea that seemed to swallow the horizon in a furious dance. "Mommy, the water is so big, isn't it?" she asked, her voice an almost inaudible whisper. "Yes, my love, but we're safe in here. Mommy is with you," Clara replied, though she knew that safety was a fragile illusion, built on empty promises and her own resilience. On the second landing, they found a room a little less ravaged by time. The walls still had traces of peeling paint, and a small alcove, more protected from the stronger draught, offered a glimpse of shelter. Clara sighed, a momentary relief that relaxed her tense shoulders. "Here, we'll stay here for now, my angels," she exclaimed, forcing a smile for her children, who looked at her with the unwavering trust that only children possess. She took out the thin blanket she had managed to save from the house and spread it on the dusty, cold floor, trying to create a cozy nest. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a small oasis of hope. Lucas, exhausted, lay down immediately, curling up like a hungry kitten. Sophia, more resilient, helped her mother arrange the few dry clothes they had to try and insulate against the biting cold rising from the floor. Clara watched her daughter's gestures, her heart tight with pride and pain, so small and yet so strong, facing adversity with silent bravery. "Are you hungry, my angel?" she asked, taking out a piece of dry bread and some cheese wrapped in a cloth. It was all that remained of their provisions. The children ate in silence, each bite a reminder of the precariousness of their situation, but also of the strength of their family bond. As her children fell asleep, huddled together under the blanket, their small bodies trembling slightly, Clara sat leaning against the cold, damp wall. The map, which she had kept in her apron pocket, seemed to vibrate with an ancestral secret. Her fingers traced the X on the foundation, the same area where she had felt the ice-cold metal under the water. What could it be? A treasure? A trap left by ancient sailors? Clara's mind buzzed with questions, but one certainty prevailed. She needed to find out. She knew that exploring that flooded compartment would be dangerous, a challenge that would require all her courage. But the hope the map had ignited was too strong to ignore, a lighthouse within her own heart. For her children, she would face any danger, any raging sea. The lighthouse, once a symbol of her humiliation and despair, now presented itself as a challenge, an enigma to be unraveled. With each breath, Clara felt the presence of her late husband, to whom she had promised to protect their family. He was watching her, she was sure, and she would not disappoint him. The night would be long and cold, but the morning would bring the chance to unravel the mystery, to turn that punishment into a new beginning. Clara spent the night awake, the crumpled map in her hands, her eyes fixed on the darkness that swallowed the sea outside. Each groan of the lighthouse, each crash of the waves against its base, seemed a vivid reminder of the fragility of her existence. But the image of the X on the foundation, where she had felt the ice-cold metal, was a beacon of hope in her mind. At the first sign of light on the horizon, a silver thread stretched over the restless waters, and Sophia and Lucas began to stir. Their small bodies stretched under the blanket, their eyes still heavy with sleep, but already seeking their mother's reassuring gaze. "Good morning, my loves," Clara whispered, her voice hoarse with fatigue. but with a new spark of determination. "Mommy is going to explore a little downstairs. You two stay here, very quiet, okay? It won't take long." Sophia, with her usual perceptiveness, noticed the seriousness on her mother's face. "What are you looking for, Mommy? Where the X is?" she asked, pointing to the map Clara now tucked back into her apron. Clara smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe. Mommy needs to see what it is." Lucas, still sleepy, just hugged his sister, blindly trusting his mother's words. With a heavy heart, Clara descended the slippery steps, feeling the damp cold intensify with each stride. The smell of mold and salt was even stronger on the lower level, where the tide water flowed in and out, creating a muddy swirl. She took off her shoes, feeling the icy water envelop her feet and rise up her legs. The darkness was almost total, and she groped along the walls. Guided only by her memory of the spot and the map's promise, fear tried to settle in, a lump in her throat. But the image of her children, depending on her, was a shield against despair. Her fingers, now firmer, slid along the damp wall until they found the recess where the metallic object was. It was a small door, almost invisible, camouflaged by dirt and time. But the map didn't lie. With an effort that made her muscles scream, Clara pushed. The door yielded with a sharp creak, revealing an even darker and tighter compartment, completely submerged. Clara's heart pounded. She took a deep breath, the salty air burning her lungs, and dove in. The water was glacial and the darkness suffocating. Her eyes struggled to adjust, but it was useless. She groped, her hands exploring the muddy bottom until her fingers touched something large, heavy, and unequivocally metallic. It was a bronze chest, exactly as she had imagined, embedded in the floor, covered in algae and sediment. With superhuman effort, she managed to open the lid, which creaked with rust. Inside, under the murky water, there was an unmistakable golden gleam. Coins, hundreds of them, glistening even in the gloom, and beside the coins, something more. Clara picked up the object. It was a deep blue crystal that seemed to absorb the faint light and emit a soft, mysterious glow. As she touched it, a wave of warmth spread through her hands, rising up her arms, and a sense of clarity flooded her mind. It was as if the crystal whispered ancient secrets, knowledge about the sea and about the very structure of the lighthouse. She felt a connection, an energy that promised more than simple warmth or clean water. It was the key, the forgotten legacy, the answer to her humiliation. Emerging, gasping and trembling with cold and emotion, Clara held the crystal and some gold coins. Her tear-filled eyes met the faint light coming from the upper floor. Horacio had tried to break her, but what he had thought was a cruel punishment had revealed itself to be a miracle. The lighthouse, once an icy hell, now held the promise of a sanctuary, of a new beginning. Poetic justice had arrived, not as revenge, but as the reward for her unwavering resilience. She climbed the steps, the crystal pulsing in her hands, ready to tell her children that hope had arrived. Sophia and Lucas, who were watching her from the upper landing, jumped in surprise as their mother emerged from the darkness, wet and gasping, but with a strange glint in her eyes. "Mommy, you're all wet. Are you cold?" Sophia asked, worry creasing her tiny forehead. Lucas, more curious than scared, pointed to the blue object Clara held. "What's that, Mommy? It glows." Clara, still breathless, extended the crystal to them, and the soft light emanating from it seemed to calm the atmosphere. "My loves, look what Mommy found," she said, her voice choked with emotion, but with a tone of triumph. She showed them the gold coins, which glistened in her palms. The children's eyes widened. "What are these, Mommy? Are they real?" Lucas asked, stretching out his little hand to touch the gold. Sophia, more thoughtful, looked at the crystal. "It's very beautiful. What does it do?" Clara sat beside them, pulling them into a tight hug, ignoring her own cold. "This crystal, my angels, is the key. It will bring us warmth, clean water, and teach us the secrets of the sea. We won't be cold or thirsty anymore. This lighthouse, which seemed like a punishment, is actually a gift, a true home for us." As she said this, Clara felt the crystal vibrate in her hand. A wave of warmth, soft and comforting, began to spread from it, radiating through the damp walls of the lighthouse. The icy air that once cut through their skin gave way to a warm and pleasant breeze. The children, who had been trembling, felt the warmth envelop them. Lucas let out a sigh of relief, and Sophia broke into a wide smile, her eyes shining with wonder. "It's warm, Mommy. The lighthouse is warm," she exclaimed, hugging her mother tightly. The smell of mold and sea salt began to fade, replaced by an aroma of clean, salty air, but without the suffocating dampness. Clara, feeling the crystal's energy, realized that it was not just an object, but an extension of a larger, dormant system. She remembered the map, that X on the foundation, the knowledge of ancient navigators, forgotten technology. It was all there, waiting to be rediscovered. With the crystal in hand, she stood up and walked to the center of the room, where a small crack in the wall, previously imperceptible, now seemed to glow faintly. As if guided by an invisible force, she fitted the crystal into the crack. At that very instant, a soft hum filled the lighthouse. Small lights, like shooting stars, lit up along the walls, illuminating the staircase and landings. A cascade of crystal-clear water began to gush from a stone spout, previously dry, in the corner of the room, filling a small basin. It was fresh, pure, clear water. The children ran to see, marveling. "Water! Real water, Mommy!" Lucas shouted, and Sophia dipped her hands into the stream, laughing with joy. Clara watched the scene, tears streaming down her face. Despair had been replaced by gratitude, humiliation by dignity. The lighthouse, once an icy, damp hell, now pulsated with life and warmth, a true sanctuary. Horatio, in his cruelty, had unwittingly given them the key to freedom and prosperity. That place, which he thought was the end, was only the beginning. Clara's triumph, driven by unconditional love for her children, had turned the cruelest of jokes into a blessing. The journey was just beginning, but hope now was an unwavering beacon in their hearts. Clara watched the scene, tears streaming down her face, no longer from despair, but from a gratitude so profound it seemed to wash over her soul. The warmth emanating from the crystal was a soft caress, dispelling the cold that had tormented her for so long. Sophia and Lucas, their faces illuminated by the lighthouse's new lights, knelt by the stone spout, eagerly drinking the pure, fresh water. "It's the best water I've ever tasted, Mommy," Lucas exclaimed, his little eyes sparkling. Sophia nodded, a genuine smile replacing the frightened expression that had marked her face for days. Clara knelt beside them, wetting her hands in the crystalline stream and bringing them to her face, feeling life return with every drop. That was the first sip of hope in a long time. The lighthouse, once a labyrinth of shadows and dampness, transformed before her eyes. The soft lights revealed details that darkness and abandonment had hidden. Ancient drawings on the walls, carvings of boats and constellations, and even rustic furniture covered by dusty tarps, now visible on the upper landings. The air, once heavy and musty, had become light and fresh, with a faint scent of clean sea air. The children, invigorated, began to explore, their little voices echoing with joy through the previously silent corridors. "Look, Mommy, a table!" Sophia cried, pulling back a tarp to reveal a round table of solid wood, dusty but intact. Clara, still holding the crystal, felt a different vibration. It wasn't just warmth, but a stream of thoughts, images that seemed to form in her mind. They were celestial maps, maritime routes, and the wisdom of navigators who had inhabited that place centuries ago. The crystal was not just a key to warmth and water. It was a repository of knowledge, a guide to understanding not only the sea, but life itself. She closed her eyes, allowing the information to flow, feeling connected to a lineage of resilience and discovery. The lighthouse was much more than a shelter. It was a living library waiting to be read. With her heart full of new energy, Clara began to organize the room on the second landing, now warm and illuminated. The gold coins, which she had kept in her apron pocket, were the promise that they would no longer go hungry. She could use them to buy food, clothes, and tools to restore the lighthouse, truly transforming it into a home. But for now, the priority was immediate comfort. She and the children unfolded the tarps from the furniture, revealing chairs and even a small chest. With the few clothes they had, they improvised soft and warm beds away from the cold, damp floor. As she tidied up, Clara felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. The lighthouse, which Horatio had offered as a cruel joke, had become her refuge, her sanctuary. With each light that came on, with each drop of water that gushed, she felt poetic justice manifest. It wasn't revenge that moved her, but recovered dignity, the certainty that her love for her children had been stronger than any malice. She imagined Horatio's face, the surprise in his eyes, if he could see what she had made of that place. But Clara's satisfaction didn't come from his humiliation, but from her own family's victory. Sophia and Lucas, now warm and fed, played hide-and-seek among the old furniture, their laughter filling the lighthouse with a melody of hope. Clara watched them, a soft smile on her lips. The lighthouse was no longer a symbol of misery, but a monument to resilience, to a mother's strength, and to the unconditional love that propelled her. The journey was just beginning, but with each passing day, with each new discovery, Clara knew she was building not just a home, but a legacy, a beacon of prosperity for her children, away from the shadow of her oppressor. That night, as the children slept peacefully, warm and safe, Clara felt the crystal vibrate again in her hands. This time, the stream of knowledge was more intense, more urgent. She closed her eyes and saw, with startling clarity, not just ancient maps, but a vivid projection of the future, a rare conjunction of stars, a celestial alignment that would happen in a few weeks, would trigger an unprecedented tide, a colossal wave that would threaten not only the lighthouse, but the entire coast. And, in the midst of this vision, she saw herself at the top of the lighthouse, the crystal in her hands, guiding a small sailboat, lost in the fury of the waters. The lighthouse was not just a home, it had a greater purpose, a rescue mission that now rested on her shoulders. The turning point had arrived, and Clara's responsibility expanded beyond her own family. Clara opened her eyes, her heart pounding, still feeling the echo of the vision. The crystal, once a source of hope, now pulsed with an urgency that chilled her soul. The image of the colossal wave, the swaying lighthouse, the small drifting boat etched itself into her mind. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about saving. Her responsibility, once limited to protecting Sophia and Lucas, expanded, embracing an unimaginable destiny. She looked at her children, who slept serenely, their faces illuminated, and a wave of love and fear washed over her. How could she, a simple widow, face such a fury of nature? The next morning brought a grey sky and a rougher sea, foreshadowing tragedy. Clara felt the weight of the premonition with every breath. She needed to act, but where to begin? The crystal was the key. As she touched it, information flowed, not abstract, but clear instructions. It revealed not only the threat, but how to face it. There was a secret compartment at the top of the lighthouse, an ancient observatory with dormant navigation and communication equipment. tools of ancient navigators designed to withstand storms and guide lost vessels. With her children still sleeping, Clara climbed the spiral steps, the crystal in hand. The top of the lighthouse, once desolate, now seemed a sanctuary of secrets. She found a rusty metal door, almost camouflaged. With effort and feeling the crystal's energy guide her movements, she managed to open it. The compartment was small and circular, with arched windows offering a panoramic view of the sea. In the center, a bronze table covered with ancient nautical maps, and a panel with levers and buttons. The air there was dense, laden with salt and history. Clara placed the crystal in the center of the table, and the panel lights glowed with a soft green light. The crystal seemed to communicate with the forgotten technology, awakening it. She felt dizzy, absorbing centuries of knowledge. The panel showed the exact prediction of the colossal tide, the probable route of the lost boat, and a long-range communication system. It was overwhelming, yet liberating. She was not alone. The legacy of the ancients was with her. When Sophia and Lucas woke up, they found their mother at the top of the lighthouse, her eyes fixed on the horizon, but with an unseen determination. "Mommy, what are you doing here?" Sophia asked, curious, while Lucas clung to her leg. Clara turned, a tired but firm smile. "I'm learning, my loves, learning to be a true lighthouse, not just for us, but for anyone who needs it." She couldn't tell them about the vision, not yet, but she could show them the beauty of the sea, the strength of the wind, and the promise that together they would face any storm. The days that followed were filled with intense preparation. Clara used the crystal to decipher maps and understand the equipment. She cleaned, polished, and tested each lever, each button, feeling like an apprentice sailor. The gold coins would be used for supplies, but the priority was to strengthen the lighthouse and master the ancestral knowledge. She knew that faith, resilience, and love for her children would be her greatest tools. The lighthouse, once a symbol of humiliation, now became a center of hope, a point of light preparing to shine brighter than ever against the imminent darkness. The days that followed transformed the lighthouse into a whirlwind of silent activity. Clara, driven by a force she barely recognized, rehearsed for the imminent battle. The crystal, her faithful companion, vibrated in her hands with each new discovery, each deciphered map. It infused her with ancestral wisdom about currents, winds, and stars. Clara spent hours in the observatory, her nimble fingers over the bronze panels, cleaning the patina of time, testing levers that creaked before obeying, and reactivating mechanisms dormant for centuries. Her eyes, once marked by sadness, now shone with feverish concentration, absorbing every detail etched into the walls. Sophia and Lucas, too young to understand the gravity, felt the change in their mother. She was more present, focused, but with an aura of urgency. They watched her from the lower landing, their little heads tilted as Clara moved with purpose. "Mommy is fixing the lighthouse so it can shine very brightly," Sophia told Lucas, who nodded with wide eyes. They helped as they could, carrying small cloths or sitting quietly, drawing the sea and the boats they saw through the windows. A silent support that Clara felt in every fiber. One afternoon, trying to calibrate a complex astrolabe that projected constellations onto the ceiling, Clara felt a pang of discouragement. The task was arduous, time scarce. Her shoulders sagged, and a sigh escaped. Lucas, who had approached without her noticing, touched her arm. "Don't give up, Mummy. You can do it," he said, his little eyes full of unwavering faith. Those words were a balm. Clara knelt, hugging her son tightly, feeling renewed energy. Her children's love was the anchor that held her firm, the flame that rekindled her determination. The crystal, as if responding to her renewed spirit, pulsed with greater intensity. Suddenly, the projections on the ceiling came to life, the stars spinning in a precise ballet, showing the exact alignment that would trigger the colossal tide. At the same time, a nautical map on the bronze panel lit up, revealing the position of a small dot, a boat, struggling against the distant waves. The vision was clear, the threat real, but also the path to hope. Clara felt a shiver. There was no more time for doubts. She began to train to operate the long-range communication system. Her voice, once hesitant, echoed through the lighthouse as she practiced distress calls, navigation instructions, imagining the despair of those on the lost boat. Every word was laden with immense responsibility. She knew she was not just a widow in a lighthouse, she was the guardian of a legacy, the voice of hope amidst the darkness. The wind outside began to howl more fiercely, and the waves crashed against the lighthouse foundation with increasing fury. Time was running out. Clara looked at Sophia and Lucas, who now slept curled up in their improvised blankets, their little faces serene. She caressed both their heads. That lighthouse, which Horatio had thrown in her path like a curse, was now her purpose, her destiny. Overcoming was not just about her, it was about altruism, about extending light to those lost at sea. With the crystal in hand, feeling the connection with the ancient navigators, Clara was ready. The lighthouse was ready. The colossal tide was approaching, and with it the chance to prove that kindness and resilience were the greatest forces in the universe. The howl of the wind, which had been a distant lament, transformed into a deafening roar. The waves, which had previously crashed with a steady rhythm, now assaulted the lighthouse foundation with the fury of an army, making the entire structure tremble. Clara, who had dozed off for brief moments, woke abruptly. The crystal in her hand pulsed with an intense light and an almost feverish warmth, confirming the imminence of the colossal tide. Her heart pounded, but there was no time for fear. The urgency of the vision propelled her. She rose with a jolt, her eyes fixed on the windows, where the night's darkness was torn by lightning that revealed a raging sea, mountains of water rising and crashing with violence. Sophia and Lucas, startled by the noise and the swaying of the lighthouse, woke up and clung to her, their little faces pale. "Mummy, what's happening?" Sophia asked, her voice choked by the tears threatening to come. Lucas, quieter, pressed against his mother, his little eyes wide with fear. Clara hugged them tightly, kissing their foreheads. "It's all right, my loves. It's just a very big storm, but our lighthouse is strong. Mommy needs to go upstairs, but you'll be safe here, warm." She pointed to the soft lights that still illuminated the landing and to the water spout that gushed incessantly. "The water and warmth will protect us. Stay together and don't worry." With a final squeeze, Clara released them, feeling the pain of leaving them, even for a moment, but the responsibility was greater. She climbed the spiral steps, the crystal in hand, each step a silent prayer. The wind tried to pull her, the lighthouse groaned under the pressure of the waves, but she did not falter. She reached the observatory, the small circular compartment that was now her command post. The crystal, when fitted into the bronze table, made the panel lights glow with a vibrant, almost magical brilliance. The astrolabe on the ceiling spun, projecting the constellations with impressive clarity even amidst the fury of the storm. The nautical map on the panel lit up, showing the small dot, the lost boat, now closer and more desperate. Clara could almost feel the panic of those on board. She took a deep breath, remembering every instruction the crystal had infused into her mind. Her fingers, once hesitant, moved with instinctive precision over the levers and buttons. She activated the long-range communication system, feeling the ancestral energy flow through her. The lighthouse, which had been silent, now hummed with the life of its reactivated mechanisms. "This is the lighthouse of hope," Clara began, her voice trembling a little at first, but gaining strength with each word. "We are detecting a vessel in distress. Please respond. We are here to guide you." She repeated the message, her voice echoing not just through the lighthouse, but, she hoped, across the furious waves, reaching the lost boat. Downstairs, Sophia and Lucas, huddled together, watched the lighthouse lights pulsate with greater intensity. The glow emanating from the top was a comfort amidst the chaos. They didn't understand everything, but they felt their mother's strength, the promise that even in the greatest of storms, the light of hope would never extinguish. The lighthouse, driven by Clara's courage and the legacy of the ancients, was fulfilling its purpose, becoming a true beacon of salvation. The silence that followed her message was almost as deafening as the howl of the wind itself. Clara held her breath, her eyes fixed on the panel where the small luminous dot of the lost boat flickered erratically like a heart struggling to beat. Each second seemed an eternity, stretched and painful. The lighthouse swayed violently, and she felt the floor tremble beneath her feet, a constant reminder of the fragility of life before such a force of nature. The hand holding the crystal was damp with sweat, and her knuckles white from gripping so hard. Downstairs, Sophia and Lucas were huddled together under the round table that had once been covered by tarps. The warmth emanating from the crystal, now fixed in the observatory, still heated the landing, but the sound of the storm was overwhelming. The laughter from before had been replaced by a tense silence, interrupted only by the groans of the lighthouse and the thunder that rattled the windows. Sophia hugged a small cloth teddy bear she had found in the chest, and Lucas, his face hidden in his sister's shoulder, squeezed his eyes shut tightly. They didn't understand the magnitude of the danger, but they felt their mother's fear, the urgency in her movements. The soft light coming from the top was the only thing that calmed them, a promise that Clara was there, fighting for them and for anyone else who needed her. Back in the observatory, Clara felt a pang of despair. What if no one responded? What if the boat was already lost? Horacio's mocking and cruel voice echoed for an instant in her mind, reminding her of her own vulnerability, but she shook her head, shaking off the shadow of the past. This was no time for weakness. Her love for her children, the promise of a dignified future, and now the responsibility to save lives were her strength. She touched the crystal, feeling the ancestral wisdom flow, a reminder that she was connected to a lineage of resilience. "This is the lighthouse of hope," she repeated, this time with a firmer, more powerful voice, projecting each word with the strength of her soul. "If anyone is out there, please respond. We are here to guide you. Give us a signal." She waited again, her heart in her throat. The wind seemed to mock her attempt, and the waves crashed with even greater fury. But Clara would not yield. The image of the lost boat, which the crystal had shown, was real, and she needed to reach them. Suddenly, a noise, faint, distorted, almost inaudible amidst the chaos of the storm. It was a hiss, static, but it was different from the sound of the wind. Clara leaned close to the panel, her ears alert, her body tense. The luminous dot on the map flickered with greater intensity. Could it be a response? A hope? The static intensified for a brief moment, and she managed to distinguish for an infinitesimal instant something that sounded like a human voice. Broken, desperate. Help, lost. It was just a fragment, but it was enough. A shiver ran down her spine, a mix of relief and dread. They were there. They were alive. And they were listening. A wave of energy surged through her, dispelling fatigue and fear. The crystal in her hands pulsed with an even stronger light, as if celebrating the connection established. She wasn't just speaking into the void. She was touching lives, extending a hand amidst the darkness. The real battle was just beginning, but hope, that faint flame, had been ignited. She knew she would need all her courage and all the knowledge of the ancient navigators to guide that boat through the fury of the colossal tide. The lighthouse, her sanctuary, now became a vital point of light, the sole and ultimate hope for those lost in the abyss of the ocean. With her heart pounding, Clara leaned over the panel, adjusting the buttons with a precision that surprised her. The static became clearer, and the voice, though still fragile and broken, was unmistakable. "Lighthouse, this is the Estrella do Mar. We're lost. Engine failed. Giant wave. Please help." The desperation in the captain's voice was palpable, cutting through the howl of the wind and the crash of the waves. Clara closed her eyes for an instant, visualizing the scene, feeling the urgency in every fiber of her being. Downstairs, Sophia and Lucas, huddled together, felt the lighthouse sway with terrifying violence. The soft lights on the landing flickered, and the sound of water crashing against the walls was deafening. Sophia clutched the teddy bear to her chest, her eyes welling up, while Lucas, his face hidden, sobbed softly. They didn't understand the words their mother was saying upstairs, but they felt the tension in the air, the fury of the sea. The glow coming from the observatory was the only thing that calmed them, a thread of hope in the darkness. Clara took a deep breath, concentrating. The crystal in her hand warmed, and the projections on the astrolabe spun, showing the safest route, the currents, the reference points that the ancient navigators had mapped. "Estrella do Mar, this is the lighthouse of hope. Stay calm. I see you. The colossal tide is approaching. You need to turn the rudder 30 degrees to starboard immediately. I repeat, 30 degrees to starboard." Her voice, now firm and clear, echoed through the communication system, cutting through the static. She could feel the captain's tension on the other side, his hesitation. 30 degrees to starboard. Now, it's your only chance. The lighthouse shuddered with a brutal impact. A colossal wave, larger than any other, rose from the ocean, swallowing the base of the structure and making it groan like a living being. Downstairs, Sophia and Lucas screamed, clinging to each other as the water briefly invaded the lower landing before receding. The fear was overwhelming, but they saw the glow from the top of the lighthouse intensify, as if their mother was fighting with all her might. In the observatory, Clara clung to the bronze table, her body swaying, but her eyes fixed on the panel. The luminous dot of the Estrella do Mar moved slowly, hesitantly, but it moved. "Yes, keep going. Now prepare for the next wave. It will come from your starboard side. Hold your course." Clara felt sweat stream down her face, her body exhausted but her mind sharp. She was a channel for ancestral knowledge, a bridge between past and present, between hope and despair. The lighthouse, which Horatio had thrown in her path like a curse, was now her purpose, her destiny. Overcoming was not just about her, it was about altruism, about extending light to those lost at sea. The Estrella do Mar was still struggling, but Clara's voice, guided by the crystal, was the anchor that held them steady. The colossal tide was at its peak, and everyone's life depended on every word, every instruction, every beat of Clara's heart. "Captain, another 20 degrees to starboard, now! The main wave is coming from your starboard side. It will try to capsize you. Hold the rudder steady," Clara shouted, her voice hoarse, but laden with an authority she never knew she possessed. The lighthouse trembled violently, and the sound of the sea was an incessant roar, but she did not take her eyes off the small luminous dot on the panel. It moved, obeying, struggling. Downstairs, Sophia and Lucas, huddled together, felt every impact, every groan of the structure. Lucas's crying had ceased, replaced by a tense silence, his little eyes fixed on the light coming from above, the only thing that seemed to resist the fury outside. Sophia clutched the teddy bear, her lips trembling, but the look of faith in her mother prevented her from succumbing to panic. Suddenly, a monumental impact. The entire lighthouse swayed like a reed in the wind, and Clara was thrown against the bronze table, hitting her shoulder. A sharp pain shot through her, but she regained her composure immediately, her eyes fixed on the panel. The luminous dot of the Estrella do Mar had vanished for an instant, swallowed by the darkness of the wave, and Clara's heart stopped. "No!" she whispered, her voice choked. But then, like a miracle, it reappeared, a little further on, still flickering, still struggling, and this time the voice on the radio, though still faint, carried a tone of relief. "Lighthouse. Lighthouse of Hope. We made it. We passed the crest. We're stabilizing." A deep, trembling sigh escaped Clara's lips. Tears of relief welled up in her eyes, mixing with the sweat. She had succeeded. The crystal in her hand pulsed with a soft, warm light, as if sharing in her victory. "Hold the course I'm indicating. The storm is still strong, but the worst is over. Follow the lighthouse's light and the coordinates I will send. You are safe now. You are on your way to salvation." As Clara transmitted the last instructions, the howl of the wind began to subside, and the crash of the waves became less violent. The lightning receded, and a faint strip of grey light began to appear on the horizon, announcing dawn. The colossal tide had receded, leaving behind a sea still agitated, but without the overwhelming fury of before. The lighthouse, though battered, remained firm, a testament to resilience. Clara felt her body heavy, exhaustion overcoming her. She turned off the communication system, the crystal in her hands now just a soft glow. She descended the spiral steps, every muscle aching, but her heart light. She found Sophia and Lucas asleep, huddled together, the cloth teddy bear between them. She caressed both their heads, feeling the peace that emanated from them. The lighthouse, which Horatio had thrown in her path like a curse, had become a beacon of salvation, not just for her family, but for unknown lives. Poetic justice manifested not in revenge, but in altruism, in the ability to transform pain into hope. The sun rose, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, and the lighthouse, bathed in the new light, seemed to smile. The sun rose, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, and the lighthouse, bathed in the new light, seemed to smile. Clara descended the last spiral steps, feeling the weight of exhaustion in every muscle, but an immense lightness in her heart. The sight of Sophia and Lucas, still asleep and nestled into each other, brought her a relief that made her kneel gently beside them. She caressed Sophia's hair, then Lucas's, and a tender but tired smile illuminated her face. The danger had passed. Her children were safe, and she had fulfilled her promise not only to them, but to herself and to those unknown at sea. The dawning day brought with it a profound calm, a stark contrast to the night's fury. The sea, though still undulating, had lost its aggression, and the sound of the waves was now a soft whisper, almost a lullaby. Through the windows on the landing, Clara watched the horizon. The lighthouse, once a somber ruin, now radiated a resilient beauty, its wet stones reflecting the golden glow of the sun. It was a home, a sanctuary, and a beacon of hope in its purest sense. Shortly after, a soft static on the communication system, which she had left on, caught her attention. It was a voice, clearer now, full of gratitude. "Lighthouse of Hope, this is the Estrella du Mar. We are safe, thanks to you. We will never forget what you did for us. May the light of your lighthouse shine forever." The message was short, but laden with an emotion that made Clara's eyes well up again. There was no greater reward than knowing she had saved lives. That act of altruism, born of her own struggle, was true justice. Sophia and Lucas began to stir, stretching and yawning. Seeing their mother, they ran to hug her, their little faces still a bit scared, but soon breaking into smiles as they felt the warmth of her embrace. "Mummy, the lighthouse shone so brightly," Sophia exclaimed, her eyes full of wonder. Lucas nodded, clutching Clara's hand. In that moment, Clara realized that the lighthouse was not just a shelter of stones. It was a symbol of her family's unwavering strength, of the ability to transform adversity into triumph. As the days passed, life in the lighthouse flourished. The crystal, a silent guardian, provided warmth and pure water, and the gold coins ensured her children's needs. Clara planned more than just to survive. She wanted to prosper. With the knowledge of the ancient navigators, she dreamed of creating a support center for fishermen and sailors, a safe harbor and reference point at sea. The memory of Horatio existed, but his shadow did not reach the lighthouse. His cruel punishment had transformed into Clara's greatest blessing. The petty man who sought to humiliate her had unwittingly handed her the keys to freedom, prosperity, and a greater purpose. Poetic justice manifested in every ray of sunshine, in her children's laughter, and in the lives that she, the widow, could now touch and save. The lighthouse, once a hell of desolation, was now a beacon of prosperity, a testament to human resilience and love. Clara, Sophia, and Lucas together built not only a home, but a legacy. They were living proof that, even in life's greatest storms, hope, kindness, and human connection would always find a way to shine, guiding everyone to a new and inspiring beginning. The new and inspiring beginning that was heralded was not just a distant promise, but a palpable reality that blossomed daily within the resilient stones of the lighthouse. Clara, with renewed energy and the ancestral wisdom of ancient navigators guiding her, dedicated herself body and soul to transforming her dream into a safe haven for all who dared to seek refuge and hope. The gold coins, once a hidden treasure in the darkness, were now a means to a greater and nobler end, the construction of a future of hope, solidarity, and prosperity for the community. With the help of some local fishermen, kind-hearted men and women who soon became loyal friends and invaluable allies, the lighthouse began to take on new features. These were not major renovations that would alter its essence, but careful adaptations that made it even more welcoming and functional. A small pier, once in ruins, was meticulously repaired, allowing smaller boats to dock safely, protected from stronger tides. The old storage compartment, previously damp, dark, and forgotten, was cleaned, dried, and transformed into an organized space for fishing equipment, nets, and emergency supplies, always available to anyone in need. The spout of pure, crystal-clear water, gushing incessantly thanks to the power of the mystical crystal, became a vital resupply point for passing vessels, offering a welcome refreshment on their long journeys. Sophia and Lucas, older now and full of contagious vitality, were the little and proud guardians of the lighthouse. Their joyful laughter echoed through the spiral steps, filling the environment with a melody of pure happiness, and their curious eyes watched every approaching boat, eager for new stories and friendly faces. They helped Clara as they could, with the innocence and dedication of children who love their home, carrying small tools, passing messages to arriving fishermen, or simply offering a tight, comforting hug when their mother seemed tired, a gesture worth more than 1,000 words. Their presence was a constant and powerful reminder of the unconditional love that propelled Clara's every action. Clara, with the crystal always nearby, felt the wisdom of the ancients flow through her. She used this knowledge to predict weather changes with impressive accuracy, to guide the safest routes amidst treacherous fogs or strong currents, and even to assist in locating abundant fish schools, sharing this precious information with the fishing community. The lighthouse, once feared for its solitude and ruin, was now a beacon of knowledge, protection, and hope, a vital and irreplaceable reference point for life at sea and for those who depended on it. The stories of Clara and the lighthouse spread quickly along the coast, attracting not only fishermen seeking support, but also families looking for a new beginning, or simply a place where mutual aid, kindness, and resilience were non-negotiable values. What Horatio had planned as a cruel humiliation, transformed by the strength of Clara's will, into a beacon of prosperity that radiated light and warmth far beyond its stone walls, touching lives and sowing hope. Clara, seeing the community grow and flourish around the lighthouse, felt a deep and serene gratitude. Her gestures were softer, her smile more frequent and genuine, and her eyes reflected the peace of one who had found her true purpose. She knew, with every fiber of her being, that true wealth was not in the gold coins she had found, but in the human connection she built, in the altruism that blossomed daily, and in the ability to transform adversity into a lasting legacy. Horacio's shadow had completely vanished, replaced by the vibrant light of a future built with resilience, love, and a greater purpose. The lighthouse was not just a home. It was a living testament that hope, when fueled by courage and kindness, could transform the cruelest of destinies into a legacy of light and prosperity for generations to come, an eternal beacon of a new and inspiring beginning.